What you are about to watch on my filthy little laptop computer screen here is an interview that was given to Ted Olson on September 14th, 2001. This has been on my mind lately because I've been reading up on some things, studying up on some things, just boning up on various things related to September 11th because I'm working on an extended essay that I plan to publish at or around the time of the 20th anniversary of September 11th, which is coming up in less than a month, entitled 19 Arabs with Box Cutters. Now, this interview was given to Ted Olson, who was the Solicitor General under Bush, big DC bigwig, continued to be one for years and years afterwards, represented the accused Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard in court, also represented Bush in Bush v. Gore, later was instrumental in arguing for legalizing gay marriage. So, big player within D.C. And on September 14th, Ted Olson was ostensibly grieving, because just 3 days prior, ostensibly, according to what we're told, his wife, Barbara Olson, whom you see here in this freeze frame, perished in one of the planes, the flight that was bound for Los Angeles, but which was, according to the official story, taken over by terrorists and rerouted to crash into the Pentagon. And Barbara Olson was allegedly on that flight and allegedly died when that plane allegedly crashed into the Pentagon. Now, I talked about Ted Olson and his story, and the fact that it was even shown to be untrue by the government, by the very people, the very authorities who are covering the case, showed that what Ted Olson was saying, what you're about to hear him say in this interview, did not happen, could not have happened. Why not? Well, what Ted Olson claims happened is that his wife, Barbara Olson, called him from the plane after it had been taken over by terrorists, called him once, and I'll let him in the interview say what he says they talked about, and then afterwards called him again for another short period of time, and then they got cut off, and then that was the last he'd heard of his wife. But again, according to the authorities, Barbara Olson did not make any call. No call of hers went through. There was a call that apparently she tried to make, but that didn't get out. So this is what the records show, that there were no phone calls made from Barbara Olson to Ted Olson or to anybody else. Which you would think would make what Ted Olson says here a lie, and a perhaps perjurous lie. Although I guess he's not saying this under oath right here, but but it is as you'll see, the kind of things that he discusses or that he claims Barbara Olson, his wife, told him about were crucial aspects to what we were told afterwards really happened on 9/11, what 9/11 was really about, quote unquote, i.e. the 19 Arabs with box cutters story. It's from what Ted Olson claims in this call that we ever hear of box cutters and knives being the main weapons used by the terrorists who hijacked the planes. It's also from this account that we hear primarily about them taking over the cockpit. Although there's also the Flight 93 calls, which is a whole another ball of wax, which I won't get into here. But essentially, another problem with all of these phone calls, including the Barbara Olson phone call, which didn't happen, is that cell phones could not be used from airplanes flying at high altitudes at around that time in 2001, and in fact still can't be used for that purpose even today, even with the advance of technology. So anyway, I just find this pretty damn interesting, and that's why I'm wanting to show it to y'all. Now, this interview was big news at the time. As you'll see, I'm going to start to play it here in a second. This is Barbara Walters. You know, they called her in for these, you know, touchy-feely, emotional kind of you know, interviews with celebrities or whatnot, and never cared for Barbara that much myself. Always just found her kind of unbearable. But anyway, they called her in for this emotional interview, which, as you'll see, isn't really all that emotional. But anyway, I want to play it now. So let's hear what Ted has to say. By the way, before I begin, I'm already 7 minutes into this video and haven't started it yet. But if you want to watch the video uninterrupted, then please just look at the link below, and you can do that. Please don't complain or bitch about me cutting in and giving my thoughts. It seems like I always get some Mr. Grumpy Pants whenever I'm doing a video like this that says, "Why don't you just shut up and let them talk so we can hear what they're saying?" Well, the whole purpose of this video, this kind of video, is for me to give my 2 cents. So that's the way it's going to be. But again, if you want to watch the video as it is, just follow the link below. All right, so here we go.
The last minute, she changed her plans. Why did she change her plans?
My birthday was Tuesday, and she wanted to be at home with me on Monday night, and at least to see, so that we could see one another in the morning before she left.
Take us through that terrible day. When did you first know that something was wrong?
One of the assistants in my office at the Department of Justice came in and told me that my wife Barbara was on the telephone. I was relieved because I had known she had gotten on a plane.
She was leaving from Dallas in Washington.
Yes, that's correct.
In Virginia.
Okay. I know this is kind of a dicey thing to talk about, or it would be a dicey thing to talk about. I would feel very apprehensive about, you know, assessing the guy and you know, the way he sounds and the expressions on his face and his body language and all that. Given that 3 days ago he lost his wife. Under normal circumstances, I would be sort of reticent to do such a thing. But given that it's been demonstrated that these phone calls never happened, I have to note here that this, to me, what he's saying sounds like it's coming off as kind of rote, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound like, well, you know, she prompts him and says, "So tell me what happened that day." "Well, I was blah 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 blah, and then I got a phone call and I was relieved and blah 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 blah." It sounds like to me like he's reading lines. There's no real spontaneity here to his account, is there? Or am I missing something? I don't know.
Yeah, and then you receive a phone call from the plane. Is that what happened?
Yes, I was relieved that she was on a plane and she was speaking to me. Then she told me that her plane had been hijacked. We spoke for a minute or two before our communications were cut. She called again a few moments later. She wanted to know what she could do, what she could tell the pilot. I asked her where she was in the airplane. She had started off in the first class section. She told me that she and the passengers had been herded to the back of the airplane, that the hijackers had taken over the plane with knives and box cutters.
Mr. Olson, when...
Okay. Again, this is the whole knives and box cutters thing, you know, and getting herded to the back of the plane, and all of this story, all of these aspects of the OS, the official story, all these things are we primarily hear from this guy claiming that his wife told him these things when in fact no phone call ever occurred. So can't you again I feel much more comfortable saying these kinds of things, you know, with the knowledge in mind that the phone call never happened. But you can see how, you know, he's sure to mention that they had knives and box cutters. You know, he's got, it's like there's certain talking points that he wants to hit. And you know, what can she do to help the pilot who's been herded to the back of the plane with all of these passengers from first class?
Your wife said, "What should I tell the pilots?" Does that mean that the pilots were with her in the back of the plane?
It gave me the impression that maybe one of the pilots or both of them were in the back of the airplane.
Okay, again, does he... it gave me the impression that... Like 3 days ago, your wife died. And I know we all deal with grief differently, but this is different, you know, because he's fucking lying. He's lying about these calls. These calls never happened. Okay? So again, something something just kind of a little I don't know, a little too together, a little too robotic about his account. Plus, would you really want to be talking to the media 3 days after this happens? Wouldn't you just be a basket case for weeks afterwards? Wouldn't you not be able to talk about it without bursting into tears if you were a normal person and not a DC Reptilian?
Airplane with her.
You told your wife about the two crashes in
Yes.
New York.
Yes, I felt that she had to know that. We reassured one another that everything was going to come out okay, that her plane was still in the air, and all this was going to come out all right. But I was almost certain in my heart that it wasn't, and I suspect she was equally pessimistic. But she did not. She did not panic. She was calm.
Okay, maybe you could just say he's the stoic type, he's the strong, silent type, and that's why he's not showing emotion here. But still, there's something that just doesn't read right, doesn't register right about it, given that this was just 3 days ago, and this is, you know, fresh in his mind. If it was, you know, 5 years later, maybe I could see him being so unemotional about it, but it merely having happened 3 days prior makes it just a little bit strange.
What were the last words that you said to your wife?
Our last words had to do with our love for one another, and that we would see one another soon, but we didn't know the conversation was about to end because the signal was just suddenly abruptly cut off.
What would you most like people to know about Barbara Olson?
Barbara Olson was an extraordinary, dynamic person. Barbara had been a ballet dancer, a movie producer, a prosecutor. Barbara participated in life and loved people and loved life. She would not have gone quietly.
And I'll bet she didn't.
No, because I'll bet she didn't go at all. because I bet she wasn't even there. Now, something else that's interesting about this interview. This is posted by some venue called 9/11 Time for Truth. This is a big, this is ABC. This is a big interview, big, emotional, dramatic interview. You would think that this would be something that you would, if you typed in Ted Olson 9/11 interview, Barbara Olson, the keywords, you would think that ABC would be one of the first to pop up, but no. Apparently, ABC has kicked this interview to the curb, has buried it, but it was dredged back up by 9/11 Time for Truth. So the only and reposted, as you can see here, in 2011. So the only ones posting these interviews now are the 9/11 revisionist types, because this interview is now an embarrassment to the promoters of the official story. It's something that they want to shoot down the memory hole. It's something they want us to just forget, because this simply never happened. This guy is lying through his teeth. This guy who is the Solicitor General, who's this big deal in Washington D.C. Big deal. This big deal power couple, Ted and Barbara Olson. I mean, this is like People magazine type fodder. This, of course, Barbara Walters would be on the scene for this kind of story. And yet, 20 years later, the only reason why we even are able to see this interview with, and it's, as you can see, with crappy, dated video. It's not, the image isn't very sharp. It hasn't been preserved very well. The only reason why this exists at all, the only reason why this hasn't disappeared down the memory hole, is because of the people who want to remember it are those who are recounting and recording all the lies that we've been told about September 11th, 2001. And in this case, it's like a direct lie. This guy's looking into the camera, lying through his teeth, looking at us, telling us what his dead wife told him, what his allegedly dead wife allegedly told him, and even his own, again, not to harp on this or anything, even his own government, even the people who he are part of his support staff, the alphabet agencies with whom he shares power, dominion, and control. Even they just had to quietly say no. Barbara Olson didn't call anybody, and yet. Again, as I was saying in the other interview, what have been the consequences for Ted Olson lying blatantly, lying psychopathically? Who does this? Who just makes up crap about what his wife told him when it didn't? On an airplane bound for doom, bound for a crash into the Pentagon, when that phone call never happened. What kind of person does that? Could you imagine yourself being able to pull that off? I couldn't pull that off. You'd have to have a gun to my head. And even then, I think I'd be pretty unconvincing. I think I'd be pretty, I would be pretty, I certainly wouldn't be just stoic and cool as a cucumber the way he is here in this interview. Old Ted. Tricky Ted Olson. Anyway, let me know what y'all think. My name's Andy Nowicki. Check out my work at altrightnovelist.com.